Alright.
Alright, you gaming bastards. Here is a guide to good party combinations at the start of the game. So this is mostly focusing on first region, where you cannot respec unless you use a mod. And this will help you in understanding what works and what doesn't work. As I said in the previous video, there are a couple of party combinations that can work. It needs to be either focused on physical or magical damage, or it can be mixed. There are numerous combinations that can work as long as you follow those guidelines. I'm going to give you a couple of examples so that you can understand what I mean. And I'm going to explain my choices, why have I decided to go for those particular combinations. Before I start throwing out combinations, one of the things that you need to understand is that I don't really care about what type of race you're using. That's up to you. If you want to use a certain race or an origin character. The only thing that you need to know is that undead are different than normal ones. Undead heal from poison and they take damage from healing spells. So always good choice for undead would be something like necromancy, because they can heal with necromancy. So they are pretty much self-sustainable in that way. And geomancer, because they can shoot poison darts at their feet or do any kind of contamination or poison wave spell that would heal them instead of damaging them. Unique thing about undead is that they have, except the things that I already mentioned, is that they have play dead ability. Play dead basically makes you invisible to enemies. They will not target you, they will not do anything. They will think you are literally dead. Cool combination with this is that you can, for example, shoot poison dart beneath your feet. That poison dart would heal you and that would create poison surface. Then you play dead in that poison surface and you will constantly heal while you're playing dead on that surface. So that's a cool combo that you can always use to your advantage with undead. Another thing are these origin characters. Whenever you meet someone in the game, you will have a choice on what kind of preset you want them to be. So I would suggest that you remember these presets, or at least have wiki on standby so that you know what each preset has got as a starting attributes, abilities and skills. That way you'll know exactly what they will be when you talk to them, because you can change their default setup. Their default setup means nothing. Change their setup to what you would like them to do. When you encounter them, you're going to have 4 choices. One choice is to be their original preset. Next choices are to be something you want them to be. It's going to be either strength-based character, finesse-based character, or intelligence-based character. Every party needs someone who will support. That can be either a tank, that can be either a long-range character like an enchanter, but that can also utilize some offensive spells. There are plenty of variations what to do. I will cover a couple of skills that are extremely good throughout the whole game, and you need to have them in your party. All of these that I'm gonna mention now can be put onto same character, and that guy can act as a support. From Hydra Sophist, Armor of Frost and Restoration. Remember, Restoration can be used as offensive tool too. If you put Decay on an enemy and then use Restoration, it will serve as a damaging spell, not a restoration spell. And it also does automatic damage to undead enemies. From Pyrokinetic, Peace of Mind. Peace of Mind removes annoying debuffs like Blinded, Terrified, Charmed, Taunted and whatever says in the tooltip. Next to that, it also increases Strength, Finesse, Intelligence and Wits. It's a huge buff, lasts for 3 turns. Great way to utilize Peace of Mind is to simply cast it even if your party member does not have these negative status effects. You're gonna get nice boost to stats, and also if someone taunts you, charms you or whatever, you're not gonna be taunted or charmed. Instead, you're gonna lose Clear-Minded buff and you're gonna be left at a neutral state. That means no Clear-Minded, but also no negative debuff like Charmed, Taunted. So you can cast Peace of Mind without worrying that later on someone will control you just because you didn't wait to use Peace of Mind. Fortify from Geomancy tree is essential next to these spells that I already mentioned. It restores physical armor and it also removes poison, bleeding, burning, acid, decaying. All of these skills that I now have mentioned does not require any kind of boost from intelligence stat. They all scale only from their combat ability. So if you have more points into geomancy, you're gonna restore more physical armor. If you have more points into hydro, then you're gonna restore more health with restoration spells and restore more magic armor with armor of frost. So these setups can be done in many ways. I like to use my tank as a support, so that he focuses, for example, on constitution and wits for the initiative. And I put all of these support spells on him. That does not scale with intelligence. It's very useful, that tactic, because then you have basically 3 in 1. Tank, healer and support. So the rest of the party can do whatever damage they want. Or you can spread these skills that I said, that I've mentioned throughout your party members. Doesn't really matter. It's up to you how you want them applied. But they need to be in your party. Every party member also needs some kind of a mobility skill. From Warfare there is Phoenix Dive, from Huntsman there is Tactical Retreat, from Scoundrel there is Cloak and Dagger. From Polymorph there is Spread Your Wings, that makes you float above the ground. That means you're immune to surface effects, and also you get Flight ability, so that you can cover a long distances quickly. Depending on your build and what type of combat abilities you utilize, you're gonna use the corresponding mobility skill. Trust me, they are essential. You're gonna be able to move out of nasty situations and go in with your tank, covering distance, focusing appropriate enemies, and so on. I already covered all the presets, how they should be built for Forge and Hollow Marshes, so you can go check out those videos. It's under builds playlist for Divinity Original Sin 2, so I'm not gonna waste my time here on that. Instead, I'm gonna give you some combinations that are extremely good. Let's start with physical party. That means full physical damage. You're gonna need the healer, obviously, something like that. Cleric is best suited as a healer in such a party. To make Cleric more effective in this situation, there's plenty of ways how to build him. But a good choice would be something like this. Forget about intelligence, strength, put 2 points into constitution, 1 into wits, something like that. Then choose hydro and geo, and choose all of these support abilities. Now you have the ultimate support tank. This thing will not die, and later on throughout the first region you can add points into warfare, at least 2 points, so that you can get bouncing shield, Phoenix Dive, provoke. Provoke is used when enemy is without physical armor, and although you won't be using any offensive spells from Geomancy and Hydro Tree, but you can use it if you want. Still, this is full physical damage party, so I would not recommend it. Your damage will come from Bouncing Shield. Bouncing Shield cannot crit, but it scales with physical armor stat from the shield that you're using. To make Bouncing Shield crit, you're gonna need Savage Sortilege talent. That talent is better used later on when you start getting higher crit chance numbers. This thing can do insane amount of damage, and that's gonna be your damage with Cleric. His efforts will mostly go towards healing party members. So now we've sorted tank slash healer slash support, whatever. This is just an overview, you can change it however you want. Now we're gonna focus on DPS characters. Other 3 characters can then become full DPS ones. Just remember, Summoner can be applied to any party combination. If you summon your Incarnate on clear ground, you're gonna have Incarnate with physical damage. If you summon Incarnate on blood, you're also gonna get physical damage. If you summon him on fire, you're gonna have fire infused and he'll be doing magical damage. So Summoner works everywhere. Same goes with totems that they can summon. Second one in this setup would be, for example, Knight. Knight does lots of damage with his two-handed weapon, and this is pretty good starting setup. Nothing needs to be changed here. Cool thing about physical damage setup is that you can combine a lot of things for crowd control effects. So here we have Battle Stomp that will knock down enemies, and Battering Ram 2 when they are without physical armor. That is extremely good. Considering that your full party is physical damage dealing party, then it's gonna be piece easy to constantly knock them down. Next to Knight, for example, you can go with something like Shadow Blade. Chicken Claw is one of the best spells in the game. It comes from Polymorph Tree, and Polymorph Tree has got some cool things also like Chameleon Cloak that perfectly suits Shadow Blade. What I would suggest here, adding another dagger to this build but leaving everything as is. Chicken Claw is resisted by physical armor. Nothing in the game is resistant to this skill, so you can Chicken Claw basically anyone, as long as they don't have physical armor to resist Chicken Claw. So now you have two characters that have crowd control abilities. Crowd control is extremely important in every combat situation. Crowd controlling can only be done when enemies don't have any more physical or magical armor, because all of these skills are resistant by physical or magical armor. For example, Chloroform is resistant by magic armor. Tentacle Lash is resistant by physical armor. This is also a fantastic crowd control ability. This works best against strength and finesse based enemies, because when you set atrophy on them, they will not be able to use any kind of attack. It does not work well against mages, because mages will still cast their spells. So now we have Cleric, Knight, Shadowblade, and for the last one, the ultimate DPS is the Ranger. Ranger starts as Pyrokinetic 1, which I don't think it's necessary, but then again with Pyrokinetic 1 you get Peace of Mind. That is extremely useful, but I would remove that. And I would put 1 point into Warfare. Warfare is the most important stat for any physical damage dealing character. So that goes for Shadowblade and Knight as well. You'll not use any skills from Warfare ability. You can, for example, you can use Phoenix Dive if you want when you get to that, and use something like First Aid. You can serve also as a support character with Ranger, but you should always focus on dealing maximum amount of damage. Elemental Arrowheads is not needed in physical damage party, so I would suggest this as your normal setup for Ranger. With every of these four characters you can use summoning. You can add summoning ability to them. It's up to you really what you would like to do. Who you want to make a summoner. Everyone can work with summoning ability, absolutely everyone. So this means that when you find other characters in the game, you're gonna ask them to be one of these setups. So if your guy is Cleric, as we created it with Geomancy and Hydro, then if you meet, for example, Red Prince, you can make him a Knight, Shadowblade, whatever you want him to be. Same goes with every other origin character. Choose who you prefer out of these characters, whose story you prefer, and then shape them into class that you want them to be. As long as you follow this simple preset of Cleric, Knight, Shadowblade, and Ranger. If you want, add one more Ranger instead of Knight or Shadowblade. It will work great. Don't forget also that you can add to your Battle Cleric Warfare 2. You can even start with Warfare. Since you'll be doing full physical damage, add more of these crowd control abilities. Obviously Bouncing Shield should be a must with him. And add Battle Stomp, Battering Ram, Provoke later on to taunt enemies that are without physical armor. And Guardian Angel too. One thing that works on tanks the best is a leadership ability. Tanky characters have high survivability on their own, so projecting leadership bonuses to your other party members that are close to you is an efficient way of building a tank. What you can add to your Knight as well is Polymorph later on, and add only Chicken Claw, and that's about it. You don't need anything else. To get Chicken Claw you only need one more point into Polymorph. Throughout the first region you can easily add that and then buy skill book that will give you Chicken Claw. That's one more crowd control ability, so now with that you'll be able to crowd control enemies with 3 characters out of 4, and Ranger can use knockdown arrows to knock bastards down when they are without physical armor. That would be it, something like an ultimate physical damage party. If you want to go down mixed party damage route, then you can take any of the 2 that I've already mentioned. They're gonna synergize fine, and with those you're gonna focus enemies that have low physical armor. Those are usually intelligence type enemies. That way, when you get rid of their physical armor, you can control them with polymorph abilities, with battle stomps, with whatever. As for the other 2 party members that will do magical damage, there are plenty of options. You can, for example, use Conjurer. He can summon Incarnate on any type of ground and change elements depending on the ground that it was summoned at. Same goes with Totems. Or you can go with Enchanter and then focus only on Hydro, while the second one can also be Enchanter but focusing only on Arrow. Same goes for 2 Wizards. One will be focused purely on Geo, while the other one will be focused purely on Pyro. That's the setup that I'm running now when I'm streaming, and it works very well. Problem is when you encounter enemies that are resistant to these types of elements, and you need to switch stuff. You can always add later on another spell tree, up to you which one you want. So you can mix about 2 different elemental schools on one character. Pyro and Geo is a good combination, and Hydro and Arrow are as well good combination, or you can focus on one. This also means you can add to any of these characters summoning, and then summon Incarnates on the battlefield too. It's really helpful. When you encounter origin characters throughout the game, and you choose one of these presets, it might not work in your favor immediately, but then again, as soon as they level up, you'll be able to distribute points how you want them to be. So that shouldn't be a problem, especially when you get to Act 2 and start using Respec Mirror. To recap, choose 2 of the bastards from full physical party that I mentioned before this one, and then add to them 2 magical damage characters. It can be, for example, 1 Hydro, 1 Arrow based, or there can be 1 Geo and another 1 Pyro based, or you can combine these elements all together, up to you. Just remember not to go overboard with splitting stats. 2 elemental schools are maximum that you should get your hands on throughout the game. There's no need for going Pyrokinetic, Hydro, Geo and then maxing out all of these 3. There's no use in doing that. They're gonna increase your damage by pumping points into Scoundrel or Two-Handed, so when you crit that it hurts more. Or you're gonna add something else from Summoning Tree. For example, if you put 2 points into Summoning Tree, then you'll get spell Dominate Mind. Dominate Mind is extremely useful in any party that can do some form of magical damage. So when you strip someone of magic armor, you dominate them, and then they fight for you for a couple of turns. Well, that would be some sort of best version of mixed damage party. You're gonna have plenty of crowd control abilities as long as you focus your physical damage characters on enemies mages, and as long as you focus with your mages on enemies warriors, you should be fine. Thieves, whatever you want, do with them one or another type of damage. For full magical damage party, well, combinations are pretty much limitless. Probably your question would be immediately, can you build for different mage types? One specializing in Hydro, one specializing in Arrow, other one in Geo, and last one in Pyro. Yes, you can. You definitely can. The issue is how to gear them up properly. You're gonna need a frontliner, no matter what you do. So there are 2 ways how to approach this issue. One is if you implement summoning into one of your mages, that way your incarnate will be the frontliner. Or if you want, you can level up 2 mages with summoning as their secondary ability. That way you're gonna have 2 incarnates. In that case, you can go full intelligence gear if you want, while your incarnates will be the front line. and taking care of enemies. Just don't forget to infuse them with power infusion, and it would be a good choice if they were physical damage based incarnates, because all of the damage that you're doing will be magical. And that way you're pretty much gonna struggle against mages, because they have a lot of magical armor. So if you summon incarnates on clear ground, that way they will do physical damage, and then that's how they can focus mages, and they can bring them down rather quickly, especially early game. And also, if needed, use provoke to taunt the bastards. Taunting can only be done if physical armor is down. Another version is to use some kind of a melee mage. You can create that character, for example, for your custom preset. I'm gonna show you how to do this. Choose something like an enchanter or wizard preset. Best two options for using melee mage are fire and aeroturge. These two have abilities like supernova and superconductor that does a lot of damage around you in AoE. So it can be extremely efficient with this kind of setup. Another way is to use battle cleric. That way you'll have tank, support and healer. The same guy from physical damage party that I've explained. And you can maybe put points into intelligence or whatever you want really. There are lots of options with battle cleric, which I've covered in my videos on how to build stuff for Forge and Hollow Marshes. And with that we've covered all three options for frontliner. Now for the rest of the mages, wizards, magical damage dealers, whatever, you can go crazy. They are going to be DPS focused, and if you want you can equip all three of them with shields and wand. That is extremely good setup for a mage. That way they'll be tanky, and you can also put that 1 point into warfare to get bouncing shield ability. In that case you can focus enemy mages and just start throwing shields with your mages. It's also definitely viable setup, but if you want more like a long range mage, then dual wands and staves are better option. Still, most of it depends on how much you're gonna use your weapons. Mages mostly use their spells and usually avoid using any kind of weapon unless there is necessity for it. During the early game, spells will be constantly on cooldown because you'll be spamming them, and you're gonna be stuck with your weapon. So putting shield on mages in early game can be beneficial if you want to do physical damage. That is, if you put 1 point into warfare. But in the end, it comes down to what you want from that mage. Every of these setups work. Shield and wand will give you survivability, dual wands will give you damage, and staff will give you damage when your spells are on cooldown, which they will be throughout the first region. You can mix it up, create all four combinations. One guy DPS with staff, one guy with wand and shield, one guy with dual wands, one guy with also, I don't know, staff or whatever. It all depends on your skill choices. Skill choices will define what kind of character you're using. Now for preset combinations, now that we know how to deal with the frontline issue and what to do with the rest of the mages, you can combine all of these four, or you can focus on two. Aeroturge and Hydro Sophist are a great combination, so you can, for example, take 4 enchanters, 2 will be focused on Aeroturge, 2 will be focused on Hydro, and maybe implement summoning on one of them, or use one of the 4 as staff frontline wielder. Same goes for Pyrokinetic and Geomancy, they synergize very well together, but no matter what you do, you're gonna need in your party someone with Fortify and someone with Armor of Frost. So even if you go full Pyrokinetic Geomancy setup, you're gonna need someone with Hydro. So that's where Battle Cleric can go in and do his thing, because he will be restoring your physical, magical armor and health, so you don't have to worry about it, while the rest of the characters can go their own route. One can be, for example, Pyrokinetic, another one can be focused on Geomancy, while the third one can be mixed, Pyro and Geo. As long as you have people who have access to Armor of Frost, Fortify, and Clear-Minded, you're gonna be fine. Not to mention that you're gonna need mobility skills with mages as well. So Scoundrel, Huntsman are all a good option. Huntsman is really good for mages because every damage that you deal from high ground means that it's gonna affect spells as well. Also, don't forget to implement Stench talent on your mages that are backliners. That's gonna help a lot, especially if you have incarnates and frontliners. Elemental Affinity as well is very efficient with mages. Not so much if you're Geomancer. And that's about it, really. These would be my combinations. I'm sure you guys will have something to add. So definitely post in comments your preferred starting combinations so that we can help everyone out together. There are numerous combinations available, so it's impossible to cover all of them. These are my top choices. Thank you all for watching. I hope I helped you out a bit with this video. Don't forget to check out the description, and special thanks to my patrons. See you all, you bastards.
Toodaloo, motherfucker.